It's not what you're going to get by doing that, it's who you're going to become.
How do we continually be aligned with our intuition?
The more you trust it, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. Because we must remember that we are never given a dream without also being given the power to make it true.
Oh, I love how you said that.
And another thing that just struck me is, when we go down that path that is not necessarily defined, we are scared. But do it anyways, and don't be afraid to fall, because the person you are going to become will pick you up.
Oh, I love how you said that.
When you hang out with your friends, what is the topic that most comes up?
Success. Success in the sense of doing everything right.
But the way I look at it is success goes a long way in making you feel successful.
That is very true. I never thought about that way. Then how do somebody figure out what their gifts are?
That is where, going back to...
Well, Nivedita, it's very great and such an honor to be able to have this opportunity to interview you. I'm sure you have a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom that whoever is watching this would really appreciate, and it will be very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, Eudora, for making time. And I always like to talk to you because you come up with very deep questions, and it gets me thinking, because, there's no end to how we perceive life and people, and because every generation has its own issues and ways of looking at things. And I learn a lot from people like you and your generation.
Thank you. And we learn a lot from your generation, like what we were previously talking about. It's a give and take. It's mutual, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me something what do you, when you hang out with your friends in a more, how should I say, in a relaxed manner, or you're thinking about profound issues, deep insights, what is the topic that most comes up?
The topic that most comes up within my generation is success. And success in the sense of doing everything right. In society, it tells you, okay, you've got to go to school, and then you got to get good grades. It's like a checklist. Each decade, you have to achieve certain things as to what society has taught us. Success or school, get a good job, find your life partner, the traditional things. And so that is one path to go about it. But of course, as humans, we have multiple paths, and a lot of people get frustrated when they don't fall into that path. And a lot of the times they lose themselves. So currently right now, what I've realized within my generation is people are starting to kind of awaken and realize, okay, maybe this isn't the path that I wanted, but where do I go? I'm very lost right now.
Yes, yes. So, the thing that I encounter in my coaching profession is that exactly that. One of the main issues is success. Of course, there's relationships and there is health. But, the way I look at it is, how do you define success will goes a long way in making you feel successful. And the example I give is, what is successful to a, let's say, a sea animal is not the same for a air animal. For instance, imagine if a little bird comes and tells a whale that you cannot fly, you're not successful, and the whale actually believes that. Imagine the most majestic animal of the ocean feeling small and a failure because I cannot fly. But you are not meant to fly. That is not your gift. So how do you measure success? You have to define success, and it is a particular combination of health, wealth, relationships, professional goals, and it's open to each person. And once you have a definition, it's so much easier to go towards it, instead of looking at somebody else and thinking, oh my God, he's made so much money, or she's so famous, or that person is in the peak of physical health. But maybe those were not your goals to begin with.
That is very true. I never thought about that way. So that is very insightful. Then how do somebody figure out what their gifts are?
That is very important, because that is where, going back to get nowadays, many complementary wellness systems from around the world, Chinese traditional medicine, Indian Ayurveda. It's a very wholesome way of evaluating a person, because every human being is different from another person. Once you understand your elemental makeup, because we are all made up of 5 elements, which is space, air, fire, water, and earth. And the permutation and combination of these elements create a certain personality and archetype. So you are either predominantly earth oriented, earth element in you, in which case stability and security is more important than anything else. So if you have achieved stability and security, you're successful. But if your predominant element is water, water is emotional, in the flow, creative. So if you get an opportunity to express yourself, you're creative, you're emotional, you can cry at the drop of a hat, then you are successful. You don't have to be stable and secure. That is why artists don't care if they make the money, if they have a house. They just have this urge to express themselves. They're emotional people. Now, if you're a fire personality, then go getter, setting goals and checking off the boxes, and always looking around and seeing who needs help and rescuing people. So that gives you a sense of being successful. That, okay, I'm out there, I'm expressing myself. It's like the sun. You can't hide the sun. They have to be, the center of attention. They love to look good, to talk a lot, to tell everybody what to do. That's a fire personality, not necessarily an earth personality, not necessarily a water personality. And then there is air. Are the thinkers. So these are the people who are, to use a term, the mad philosophers. Just leave them in a room and all they do is think and think and think and come up with things that their generation has not thought about. So they don't care about money. They don't care about expressing themselves. They don't care about being the center of attention. They want the space and the freedom to think and come up with ideas that may sound far beyond the age they're in. But that freedom, that is success. Somebody who gets a chance to come up with hypotheses and challenge current thought processes, whether it is in theology or philosophy or science or religion. They want that ability to question everything. That is success for them. So, and space again is that if you have the space element in you, if you're predominantly, a space personality, then the freedom to be, you cannot be contained. Space cannot be contained. So having, the sad thing is all these traditional systems, whether from the Middle East, from China, from India, from wherever, at some point we lost touch with that wisdom. And so now the modern commercial capitalistic world is money. The only sign or the only metric of success is how much money you make.
Yeah.
But many people who have a lot of money, but a string of broken relationships, horrible health, and that to me, it not necessarily successful on one metric, yes, but on other metrics, no. So what, as you asked to answer your questions, you have to spend time understanding who you are and what you want. Just because you're born into a family or born into a country or born into a religion does not necessarily mean that's what you want. That is the starting point. Taking time off to understand yourself.
That is very true. I think when people really kind of sit down and think about truly what they want, it is so hard due to the conditioning, right? And the programming from what we were raised in and with society. And I really love what you said. You said the freedom to be. I think that just opens up a whole new world because a lot of the times people think, I need to be this for a certain person. I need to be this for my family. I need to be this at work. And so when you say the freedom to be, you're just existing. There is no type of tension to be pulled one way or another. And that in itself, I feel like it's so liberating. So
Yes. And also, as human beings, we we have two competing drives. The drive for approval, meaning we always need to fit in,
Mhm.
and also a more important drive, I would say more important, just as important, drive to be authentic, because each one of us are very different. And how we adjust this drive to be a drive for approval, to belong to our family, belong to our community, belong to our religion, belong to our country, versus who I am as an independent human being. And when we are younger, at first we are determined, our willpower, or our free will is mostly controlled by our family and community,
Yes.
up to the age of, let's say, 12 years old. And as you start the teenage years, we go through this rebellious phase, because that is the time the drive for authenticity is clashing with the drive for approval and belonging, because you're trying to figure out and find out, who am I really? And then, it at that point, the family and the community should be trained to give that individual space to figure out who they are amidst the safety of belonging somewhere, so they're not worried that they are cut loose, they're on their own. So while they still have a sense of belonging, they also have the time to explore who they are truly, at many levels: physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. And then there comes a point where your free will, you are mostly responsible for making your decisions. Initially, it is your family and community that
Mhm.
makes the decisions for you. And then you raise your self-awareness, self-knowledge to a point where you know what is right for you. And that is the thrive stage. First is the survive, because we are surviving on family and community. Then the thrive, when we know what we want. And it just doesn't appear to you. It is actually an effort. So many people come to me and we go through this process, and I ask them, what do you want? And they're stumped. It's like a deer caught in a headlight. They don't know what they want, because they were never asked that question. And if
Yeah.
they ever thought about it, there was a lot of pressure shutting them down, that no, this doesn't matter what you want, this is what is expected of you. So we have to explore that, and we can do that through either some, if you are lucky enough to belong to a environment which allows that, or certainly spiritual practices give you that freedom, that confidence to know that you can explore yourself, because each one of us is born with a very specific set of
Blueprint.
talents.
Gift and talents. There's
Yes.
blue.
So our spiritual heritage tells us that you are independent, you are unique, and you must figure out what is your unique blueprint, energetic blueprint. Your
Mm.
duty, it is not only your responsibility, it is your duty, and you alone have the power and the responsibility to figure out what you want. Nobody can tell you what you want, right?
So
And then there is another stage which is called transcendence, where at first you had no willpower. Then
Mhm.
you think you have all the willpower. And there comes a point where, as you get deeper into your spiritual practices, you'll realize that there is a collective will. We have our own stories, and there is a collective story. And how to find where we fit in, where our story fits into the collective story, whether that collective is your family, that collective is your community, that collective is your country, or that collective can be a global citizen. Where do we fit in? Because everybody is given a spot under the sun, but we have to discover that.
And to discover that, we must be in tune with our intuition, right? Because our intuition is all knowing. That's where our gifts lie. That's where our uniqueness lies. And so I also know that within my generation, people are starting to understand that. Like, okay, first in the beginning, they would follow the path of what everybody else is saying. But then once they've really started to kind of sit with themselves and figure out what they truly want, they realize it's your intuition that tells you. However, what I've noticed is they would they would be in tune with their intuition for a second, but it's so easy to be brought out of it, right? There's so many external stimulations. There's so many people pulling you in one direction or another. How do we continually be aligned with our intuition?
So the thing about intuition is that everybody is born with intuition, but just as with any skill, Eudora, the more you trust it, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. Either you use it or you don't lose it, but you put it in the back burner. So the thing with intuition is it never guarantees you anything. It just gives you a flash. It's like insight. But we must have the confidence to follow that insight, not knowing where it's going to lead us. It may not necessarily bring you the money or bring you the name and fame, but it will direct you down a path where certain information will be revealed to you about yourself, either something you like or sometimes something you don't like. But that is very important. Knowing what you don't like is as important as knowing what you do like. So it's never a waste of time.
That is
Suppose, for
true.
instance, I wanted to study law and I put so much effort and money into it. The more I went and successful I got, I thought, well, this is my path. But at some point, intuitively, I felt this is not what I was born to do for the rest of my life. And I had to trust that intuition that if I let go of law, I will still be okay. I will still make money. I will still have certain, something to give back to society. Now, that did not happen overnight. It did not happen the day I left law and next morning I was this very successful coach. No, I had to find myself. But that is where we start doubting ourselves, because the
Yeah.
first sign of no money, not having a clear plan, we think that, oh my God, we made a mistake. So we shut down the intuition saying, I made a mistake. I should not have done that. But if you stay in that space long enough and say, why did I get this thought? Why was this urge so strong that I could not ignore it? Because we must remember that we are never given a dream without also being given the power to make it true. So the very fact that I felt that I don't want to do this and I want to do something else, I must give myself the permission to stay with that experience without, a sense, without predictability and certainty that this is going to be exactly the way I expect it to be. It's just opening up doors for you. And the mistake all of us make is we think the minute we have an intuitive hit that immediately everything will work itself out. We will know exactly where to go, what to do, how to make the money. No, the thing is, it will open up one step and you will take that step. And when you take that step, 3 more steps will be revealed to you. And as you walk that path, suddenly 10 steps will be revealed to you. So
Mm.
to have that confidence that I am going to explore this path. Why did I get this urge? And this is something that most people are scared, because again, you have to make money, you have to get married, you have to have the children, you have to have so many millions by certain age. If these are the metrics, then when you're going off the path, we feel scared, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so that's the opening ourselves up to my intuition told me to do something, because intuition just doesn't give you random hits. It's
Yeah.
something that happens again and again. In the beginning, you just, that's interesting. And then it becomes stronger and stronger until a point when you cannot quell it anymore. You have
That is,
to follow that path. And you must be willing to take the risk to say, if this hit has come to me, there is some information about me that I will discover. And
mm.
you will have to do it at, have the confidence to go down that path, knowing that it's not what you're going to get by doing that, it's who you're going to become.
Oh, I love how you said that. It's not what you're gonna get, it's who you are going to become. And I think a lot of people really need to kind of drill this in their head because we live in a physical world, right? Where value is based off of what you have, tangible things, it's what people see. And then people put the value on you, but nobody sees the value in who you are as a person.
Yes.
That is,
And in that connection, the modern people, or actually people anywhere, we don't spend enough time contemplating and reflecting the difference between what something costs and the value of something. For instance, a Prada bag or a Chanel bag costs a lot. But when push comes to shove, what is the value? When you're hungry, when you are ill, when you're sad, what is it going to do for you? And yet, on the other hand, sunshine, air, mother, these are free. You don't pay for them. But when push comes to shove, this is what you need. So the value of something and the cost of something, we have to be able to make a distinction between that.
Mm.
So the value of freedom versus you have money in the bank, but you're miserable. You get up and you're like, you have to really talk yourself into going to work. Now, what is the value of that? You will have a lot of money, sure. But, then we'll have to constantly ask ourselves, what is the cost of something and what is the value of something? And the sweet spot or the best thing is when the cost and value coincide. But even if they don't, then you will have to judiciously choose between the both of them. A lot of pragmatists will come and tell you, so you're not going to live on air and sunshine. Sure, we need the money, of course.
Yeah.
But it cannot be all about the money. It cannot be all about the house. It cannot be all about the car or the address or whatever it is that we live at. At some point, that freedom. And another thing that just struck me is, when we go down that path that is not necessarily defined, we are scared. But this is something I read somewhere which really made sense to me, that do it anyways and don't be afraid to fall, because the person you are going to become will pick you up.
Oh, I love that quote.
So don't be afraid to fall, because the person you'll become after that fall will pick you up. And it's not how often you fall, it's how often you are able to get up is another determinant or metric of success.
That is true. Yeah, because a lot of times we define success on what you have produced, but not many people define success as how many times you picked yourself up after so many defeats. I think that is so much more valuable. When you see someone who is flourishing in life, you see kind of the outcome as to who they become, right? But nobody has seen all of the downfalls in the past that has resulted in the person that they've become. And I think that's where we kind of need to change our perspective in society in defining success as that instead of the tangible things and the money. And when you were talking about money as in how there's so much value placed on that, like you have so much money, but you're miserable, right? Like you have horrible relationship, you wake up, you're depressed, you're sad, even though on the outside people see you as successful. And that reminds me of a lot of celebrities, a lot of people who have a lot of money. We see them as successful, but behind the scenes, they're actually very sad. It's like, and a lot of people have even said this. They said that I have all the money in the world, but I still feel empty.
Yes. And in fact, you hit the nail on the head, because even though people who have few means, their life is difficult. It's not a comfortable life. But the people with tremendous money, but who have not found their life purpose, because money in and itself is not good or bad. But if you have not found a purpose-driven life and you just have money, or you're a trust fund baby, we think how comfortable, how wonderful is their life. They're the most miserable. Because there's an imposter syndrome, and there is only so much material things can give you joy, like an ice cream. You can eat 20 servings of ice cream, but not the 21st. At some point, it's going to make you sick. Similarly, how many bags are you going to buy? How many vacations are you going to take? Yeah. At some point, there is a human need for self-respect and giving back, not just receiving. And unless we have exerted ourselves, created or crafted something that we can give to the universe, there is a void. There's a void. You can be buried with all the treasures in the world, but their void will be there if you have not figured out and found out and discovered your gift, honed it, polished it, and shared it with the world. Whatever may be that gift. It can be making money, it can be serving people, it can be creating, designing aesthetic things, it can be creating services, but each one of us has something to share with the world. And until we do that, we are never going to feel complete.
That is very true. What I've noticed in my personal experience is that every time that I give, that comes from my heart, that comes from this feeling, like I don't know why, but I want to do something good for you, even though I'm giving away either if it's money or my time. Yes, that is wasted. However, I feel more fulfilled. Why
Yeah.
is that?
That is because the entire universe, and this is where spiritual concepts, understanding it makes it so important. Everything in the world is a cyclical process. It's not a linear process. For instance, starting with a breath, if we compare allegorically giving to breathing out and taking to breathing in, we cannot constantly be breathing in. At some point, we'll explode. We have to breathe out. And look at it. The same goes with this, the circadian rhythm. The sun is rising, but unless it sets, you will never enjoy a sunrise ever again. So the sun has to give in to the moon, and the moon has to give it back to the sun, and that cycle continues. Think about the ocean, the ebb and flow of the ocean, the ebb and flow of seasons, the ebb and flow of it's parents give birth to children, give them everything, but there comes a time where the children start giving to the parents. So this give and take is the natural law of the universe. And if you stop one end of it, either if you continuously take, or many people make this mistake, continuously give, you'll be empty. That give and take has to be the rhythm. There has to be a rhythm. If it goes up, it has to come down. If it goes to the left, it has to come to the right. There is a rhythm. You cannot just, life is not linear. Neither can you always take, nor can you always receive. And think about it when you're breathing. I can't always continue to only breathe in, nor can I always continue to breathe out. I have to. Now, how many times you breathe in and breathe out is dependent on each individual. Even our breaths are very, very unique and individualized. But that is a part of us that if you do not give, you're going to be unhappy. If you don't receive, that is a very egotistical frame of mind, that I will not take from anybody. You watch. This is my experience. Nature and universe will put you in a position where you will be forced to go on your knees. Because it's an experience. Yes, because it's an experience, because there's only one force in the universe that gives. All of us are receivers. And when we receive something of abundance, we get joy when we share it with others. So we don't create anything. We are channels to receive abundance and pass it on to other people.
What you said about channels, because it exactly aligns with what you're talking about with the cycle, right? Yeah. We're a channel, and as a channel, we have to have it flow with the energy, right? And so if we're only receiving, like you said, but we're not giving, then we're kind of essentially blocking that channel, and vice versa. And it also reminds me of in Chinese we have yin yang, which is darkness and light. One cannot exist without another. And that's kind of what popped up into my head for me. And like, as nature, as what you said, the ocean, the seasons, right? The seasons keep changing. Nothing stays stagnant. And I think that is one of the purpose of life, is to keep changing.
And it's the rhythm. And what you said, yin and yang, in Vedantic philosophy, it is called Purusha and Prakriti, the feminine energy and the masculine energy. Now, these are not specific to man and woman. These are different types of energy. The feminine energy, the masculine energy is the energy of hustling and focus and outward moving. The feminine energy is the energy of flow, inward moving, in a calm state. So it's like the parasympathetic and the sympathetic systems. Each of them, the feminine energy is the parasympathetic, and the masculine energy is the sympathetic energy. So fight and flight is the masculine energy. Feed and breed is the feminine energy. So both of this you need. You need to fight and fly and protect yourself, flee, and you need to feed and breed.
You have to have a balance of both.
You have to have both. And look at it even in the food chain. We are at the top of the food chain. The human beings eat all the animals, plants, and everything. But when we die and when we are buried or when we are burned, we become part of the fossil or the fuel or the fertilizer that the worms feed on. So that also is give and take.
Mm.
So if you ever think that you can only give or you can only take, then you're blocking that flow of energy. And whenever energy is blocked, it causes dis-ease in the body, or a breakdown of relationship, or a breakdown of the natural systems. So that is where these traditional, whether it is Chinese traditional medicine or Ayurveda, whatever, they go to the basic. Whenever somebody comes to them for any kind of consultation, a basic nature, and when you are out of sync with that nature, they figure out what is your nature. Are you one of these 4 or 5 air, earth, water, air, fire, space, and then how you are out of sync with that. So because if your predominant energy, let's say, is fire, you cannot become water. You'll never become water. But what you can do is you can maintain this elasticity, because a fire is very useful as long as it is a kitchen fire or a heating fire. But when it becomes a forest fire, it's not very useful. So
Becomes
then,
destructive.
yes, so then you have to bring back that fire element to its benevolence. Same with water. Water is so soothing, so calming, so beautiful until it becomes a tsunami. Same with wind. It's a beautiful breeze is so good, but when it becomes a tornado. So understanding even in people who have these elements predominant in them, when they are out of sync, they start exhibiting disease or certain fissures in their relationships or in their communities. So diagnosing who you are, what is your predominant nature, elemental nature, goes a long way to understand what do I need to do. And towards that end, food is very important, because in Ayurveda, they say that if you eat the right food, you don't need any medicines. And if you eat the wrong food, no medicine can help you. So by that, imagine this. Suppose I am a fire personality. Now, I have to be very careful not to eat very spicy food, not to eat very oily food, not to eat very acidic food, because if I do, nothing you do, I will get out of sync with my nature. The kitchen fire will start becoming the forest fire. Now
Mm.
you will have to use food. Food is only one of the methods, but it's a very important method to bring it back to normalcy. So that is why in any spiritual practices, food is predominantly is a very important factor. Then next level is breath. So, there are so many ways, because what is the importance of breath? Breath connects the body and mind. We are not just the body or just the mind. There has to be a connection, a bridge between that.
Mm.
The thing that inside us that connects the body with the breath, with the mind, is the breath. So if you will notice, when your mind is agitated, your breath will be agitated.
Yeah.
When your mind is calm, your breath will be calm. So now once you understand this connection, when your mind is agitated, by breathing practices, you can bring down the mind from
Yes.
agitation to calmness. So that is another method. The third method is chanting, affirmations and chanting, because the mind always needs something to think about. That's the nature of the mind. It's like a pet. You need to throw a bone or a ball or something, right? So
Mhm.
if you are not in control of that, the mind is designed to go down a negative line of thinking, because negative thinking is survival thinking. What is negative thinking? What's wrong in my life? I need to fix it. And you will fix it, but it's a loop. It's an infinite loop. This is a problem, fix it. This is a problem, fix it. This is a problem, fix it. When do you thrive? So understanding, okay, the mind needs something to think. If I don't give him anything constructive or positive to think, it is going to constantly think negative. So then that cognitive reframing, feeding it the right ideas, the right philosophy, the right thoughts, where it can take it and run with it. So
Mm.
then the scriptural studies are very powerful, because it gives you this larger than life archetypes and models to aspire towards. Like in Harry Potter, I mean, there's some model that you're aspiring for. Similar,
Yeah.
Harry Potter is the mythology of the current times, but every country, every religion, every culture have their own mythologies and myths to live by, heroes and, characters that we live by. So that is at the level of the mind. So understanding that at the body level, food is very important. At the mind level, giving something positive to think about. And at the intellect level, thinking of, because human beings cannot be happy with the same thing. So unless you give it something, a higher goal, you're very quickly going to get frustrated. So
You go into that.
intellectual pursuit is very important. Setting aside time to reflect and to contemplate and to, constantly push your knowledge a little more than what it was before in any area that you're interested in.
When you're talking about the chanting, why it's so important to do so, because your mind is constantly thinking. If you've got a negative thought, then you're going to continuously keep trying to fix it and have that negative thought. It reminds me of something that I saw online where it says, if you're constantly thinking that the world is, I'm paraphrasing here, but if you're constantly thinking about like the world is out to get you or that you don't belong in this world, you will find it. If you constantly think about you belong in this world, you'll find evidence that will support it. And it's like an analogy is like our brain's like a computer, right? It's like a code. If you put in the code, this negative thought, that's the code, it's gonna keep running that program. And I think a lot of people in my generation, especially with, the rise of social media and just external stimulation, people are kind of stuck in this loop here of this negative thoughts. People know like they are not their thoughts, but they just can't stop it because one thing just keeps leading to another and it completely consumes their life. And then their life becomes horrible as well. Like terrible things happen to them. And then they're saying, why do these terrible things happen to me? And then that's evidence to support why they don't belong. So it just keeps continuing. And that's very powerful what you said with the mantra. Now I understand why mantras are so important because you're essentially rewiring that, right? Recoding your mind.
Because if you look at the meaning of mantra, it's made up of two words, man and tra. Man is mind, tra is a tool to control your mind.
Mm.
So not only you're giving something for the mind to hold on to, but not just anything. It's a very high ideal that you're giving the mind. So that's what it's going to create now. That's why the
Mhm.
mantras are so important. And you talked about touched about something very important. We basically have two drives, not just drives, bias. One is a confirmation bias and the negativity bias. We just talked about the negativity bias. So if you don't give anything concrete to the mind to think about, it is hardwired to go to negative thinking. What is wrong in my life? Fixing it, which is fine. It is survival living, but the downside is you're caught up in it. So how do you come out of it? You activate the confirmation bias. What is confirmation bias? This is what I'm going to look for, because whatever you look for, that's what you're going to find. So exactly, you are creating your reality by changing the code. Right now, my code was look for what is wrong with my life. Now I'm changing the code is what am I going to focus on? Not what I'm running away from, but what I'm running towards.
Mm.
Then your mind, it's like they call it the reticular activation system, RAS system. It's like a search box in your laptop or wherever. All the information is there in Google, but the Google cannot give you that information unless you ask a specific question.
Mm.
The information may be there. So the universe holds all the universal, all the information, but you have to ask the question, how do I repair my relationship? How do I create wealth? Not like why I don't have the money, why I'm miserable, why I have been picked by the universe to be the, miserable one. If you
Mm.
ask questions, the Google will give you 100,000 answers why it is so. But you can choose to say, how do I change this?
You're talking, yeah, changing your perspective.
Yes.
There's always two sides to it.
Exactly. Instead of why is this happening to me, with a small change, why is this happening for me? How is this good for me? Instantly, the answers will be different. And based on those answers, your actions will be different. And based on your actions, your reality will change.
It's so simple when you say it, and it makes so much sense But how come when it comes to actually putting into action and being consistent of it, like, well, like me personally, I will understand that in my logical mind and I will do it and then I will feel better and I would see good things come. But then I keep falling back into that. I think consistency is also a huge thing when it comes to my generation. We keep going back to the same negative cycle.
And you're right, but that is not just your generation. It is true of every generation,
Mm.
every human being that was ever created. That is why the Buddha, the great one, said that for any kind of growth, you need three things. You need a body of knowledge, which is called dharma. You need a teacher to interpret and teach you that, but also you need a community to practice it with.
Ah, community,
So,
yes.
so if you are trying to do this all by yourself, you can only go so far. You have to be highly motivated, with 90% of the people are not. So belonging to a community where if you are a athlete, you must surround yourself by other athletes. If you're a scientist, you must surround yourself by other scientists. If you're an artist, you must surround yourself by artists. Similarly, if you want to feel positive, think positive, do positive, surround yourself by those kind of people so that when you slip, somebody gives you a hand and says, come on, let's go. You can do
That's
this.
true. Yeah.
So this is where belonging to a group, to a community that does what you are aspiring to inculcate and live by is very important.
Yeah, you can only go so far alone. You can go beyond what you can ever imagine with a village, with a community. And that is something that I started to learn as well too, because for me, I grew up thinking I have to figure everything out by myself. I'm very independent. And it did get me far, don't get me wrong. I've gotten to very far places, but then the past couple of years, I've realized I've hit a stop. And just recently, I love how you touched on community because I didn't realize how impactful and valuable a community is. And what I've realized is like it's their energy that helps lift you up. It's
Yes.
I don't know how to describe it, but that's a very good point that you like tacked on there.
No, you said the right thing. And it ties back to what we discussed a few minutes ago, that why do you think that after a while you hit the wall? Yes, it is community alone cannot do it. Your independent personal effort is just as important as belonging to the right community, because all the teachers and all the community members can only take you so far. Eventually, you will have to do it. So it ties back to the breath in and breath out. So the
Mm.
he alone cannot do it, and you alone cannot do it. So these two have to combine.
Ah, okay. The
If you don't
duality of that.
put any effort and you say the community is going to uplift me, it's not going to happen. You have to put in the effort. You have to go at it alone, but always with the support of the community. But ultimately, the work has to be done by you.
So first it starts with you and your motivation to do so. And the community is what gives you a lending hand whenever you need so to kind of uplift you. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to you.
Yes, and but before that, it's very important, and this is where we'll maybe do another podcast some other time, where it ties into the chakra system. The first chakra is about accepting, acknowledging your place in this planet. You are born into a family, you're born into a community, you're born into a country. You don't have to be with them, but you cannot reject it. Once you accept that, then you can move on. When you reject, a lot of energy goes towards keeping something that is so intrinsically you that you are pushing away. So accepting it, and that is the first place where you start until you go to the next chakra, which is about now, with the security and nurturance of what I have been born into, I can explore. Not by
Mm.
rejecting it, by accepting it, but you don't have to be that. You can explore.
It's like you're holding, because I feel like if you reject, then you completely deny that. But when you accept it, you hold space for all
Yes.
of it.
And it can come down to citizenship. Many people give up their citizenship. You don't have to reject. You first accept. For me, for instance, I'm an Indian. I'm not ashamed. I'm not afraid. But having said that, I accept it. But I look, what more do I want from this life?
Mm.
That takes me to maybe a citizen of another country. Does not mean that I reject this. I accept it, but I want something more from life. Same with religion. Now, if you come from a particular religion, you don't have to reject it. You learn what you learn from that religion, and you are free to explore tenets of philosophy or ideas from other religion. You don't have to reject one to look into other things.
I love how you say that because I think a lot of people think that if in order to be a part of something, you have to completely deny something else that's conflicting. And I
Right.
think that's where division comes in just in this world, right? Everyone is put in their own category, and people are also afraid to explore out because of the fear that's like put onto there, the shame, because it's
Yeah.
like you're going over there, so I'm going to completely reject you here. But I think that you've like tacked on a really good point right there with accepting all of it, because if you accept it, you hold the space, you become open. And I think in that sense, it's more fulfilling, right? You see all these different perspectives, and I think that needs to be more that concept needs to be more accepted in society. And I think that's where we can kind of coincide and coexist together more peacefully instead of we see all these wars going around, right? The complete
Exactly.
rejection of another religion or another demographic.
Yes, exactly. So accepting something doesn't mean you have to live with it for the rest of your life. Accepting is this is who I am. It has given me a lot, but I need more. I need
Mm-hmm,
something different.
mm-hmm.
So that's just acceptance doesn't mean that's all you will do. I mean, you cannot explore anything else. No, accepting means this is who I am. This is where I start my journey and I accept it, but now I'm ready for something different, ready for something more.
Mm. And accepting it also means that you're flourishing, you're thriving in life rather than just surviving in what you were taught in the beginning.
And not being in denial. Rejection means being in denial, but you cannot deny something. If you are something, where whoever you are, you cannot deny it. You can
Mm.
choose to build on it, you can choose to grow, but you cannot deny what you were, what is your reality.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
And I think this leads me to my next question, in terms of duality, right? We're accepting everything. We're accepting, the black and the white. Um, and so I feel like our mind is very hard. It's very hard for a mind to grasp this, right? The conflicting things, either if it's black and white, either if it's love and hate, either if it's happiness and grief. Um, how can we better embody this without internal conflict? Because I feel like internally, for example, like you love this person, but they made you mad, and at that time you hate them too. But how can we accept the duality of both?
So if you understand that you're touching upon another universal law of spirituality, which is called the law of duality or the law of polarity, understanding that every experience, every single experience is born out of duality. So you cannot experience anything without reference to its polar opposite. So what is hot? If you don't know what is cold, you will not know what is hot. So is 20 degrees hot? It's
Yeah.
60 degrees hot? Is 8? It is all relative. Where are you? So unless you've touched the or experienced cold, you cannot experience heat. Unless you have experienced uh, suffering, you don't know what is joy. Unless you've experienced day, you don't know what is night.
Mm,
So, understanding that just because somebody is different or polar opposite does not make them wrong. It's not what you're experiencing right now. So, understanding that if that was not there, if the hate was not there, the love cannot be there. If the love is not there, the hate is just the other face of the coin.
mhm.
Understanding our problem is we start out thinking there is only one reality and what I experience is the reality. People so easily throw out the word, this is the truth, this is the truth.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
one truth. Truth is of three kinds. One is the absolute truth, which is at the level of spirituality, which means everything and everyone is the same. We all have the same consciousness, but we don't experience that on a day-to-day basis. Only the very evolved souls experience that. Below that is a transactional truth. So if I show you this phone and I ask you, Eudora, what do you see? You say, I see a pink surface, but I see something else. So
Oh,
what is the
okay.
truth? What is the truth? Your truth is this, but my truth is this. So you can go blue in the face telling me, Nivedita, the reality is pink. And I'll say, no, Eudora, the reality is a printed image. So understanding there is a transactional truth. And then ultimately there is a personal truth, which you and you alone are privy to. What is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong by you. So understanding that just because I feel something, like I said, just because a bird wants to fly, that is its personal truth. It's not the personal truth of the whale. So who is right and who is wrong here? Right? So there is an absolute truth, which most of us do not experience and are not ready for it without any serious introspection and contemplation of spirituality. But at least we should be aware that there is a transactional truth and there is a personal truth. Personal truth is what I believe and I know to be true. It's true for me, may not be true for you. And the transactional truth is allowing everybody else to have that their own personal truth. Just because it is not true for me does not mean it cannot be true for you.
And
it's
then
like,
that comes to accepting, right? That leads back to what you were saying, is accepting that both can exist.
both can exist, and understanding that nobody is right or wrong or good or bad. So you cannot force anybody else to come to your way of thinking, but you can empower yourself if you can get a glimpse into their way of thinking. So think about it. I cannot force you to see what I'm seeing, because if you don't cooperate, I cannot. But do I have the power to peek over and see what are you seeing? She's right. She's seeing pink. So then I accept that you are not here to make my life miserable. This is your truth.
I love that analogy.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, for instance, imagine, you are in the northern hemisphere, I'm in the southern hemisphere, we are talking, we are blindfolded, or whatever it is. I'll say this is summer, you'll say, no, it's winter. And we'll be arguing and arguing. I cannot make you come here, but I'll say, why is she saying it's winter when I'm feeling so hot? Let me go and check out her place. And then I realized, oh, she was not saying that to irritate me, to annoy me. That was simply her reality. So you empower yourself. You are forcing somebody to, we say, why should I do it? Why can't they do it? But it is your problem. You want to feel good. You want to feel happy. You can't force others to make you happy, but you have the choice and the power to see what they are seeing so that you understand their perspective. Nobody is here to make our life miserable. They are only expressing their reality. And, if you want to be at peace with yourself, the more effort you make to understand somebody else's reality, the more you will realize nobody is out here to make your life miserable. Nobody. They're just living their realities and expressing their reality.
And having that awareness to hold so many different perspectives is also equivalent to your emotional intelligence. You have to have some type of emotional intelligence and emotional maturity to hold all these different perspectives. And I think with doing so, it'll make you more at peace, because then you don't feel the need to force somebody to see your own truth and your own perspective and your reality. And I think that if everyone does that work on themselves, this world would be such a much more peaceful place.
Absolutely. And on that note, it's very what should I say, a very powerful concept that I want to leave you with, that when anybody comes to me, I tell them my whole modus operandi of my coaching is you are responsible for your life. And they get so upset. They said, why? Somebody has done me wrong. Now, responsibility does not mean it's your fault. It's your problem. You are unhappy. You alone have not only the power, but the responsibility to fix yourself. And what is responsibility? The ability to respond. Now, respond with what? Respond with love, respond with forgiveness, respond with gratitude, any one of them. And each of them is a doorway to a higher dimension of living, because love is the key to creation. If you can respond with love, you can create the life that you want. And forgiveness is the key to emotional cleansing. If you can respond with forgiveness, your emotional happiness will go through the roof. Sky's the limit. And if you can respond with gratitude, gratitude is the key to raising your vibration so that you can attract all the good things in life. So you're not doing anybody a favor when you're responding with love. You're not doing anybody a favor when you're responding with forgiveness. And neither are you doing anybody a favor when you're responding with gratitude. You are helping yourself to raise your vibration, to attract the finest things in life, to be at peace, and to, if you don't forgive, you are carrying this huge baggage and going through life. You're drinking, like the Buddha said, you're drinking poison and you're expecting your enemy to die. Your enemy is merrymaking, and here you are dying a slow death.
I was just about to mention that. You read my mind there. And it's so true. And I love that too, because there was also another quote that I saw where what happened to you wasn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal from it. And I think that's very powerful, because if you think that that person is supposed to make you feel better, you're giving your power to them. You're dependent on them. But if it's your responsibility, you're empowering yourself. The power has always been within you. You can either be angry or you can heal. It's all dependent on you. And I love that you left me with that, because I absolutely agree with it.
And one more thing I would like to also address, since you said that being angry is not bad, because anger is a very natural reaction. We have 9 emotions that are natural. It's when it happens without your control, that's when it's destructive. So righteous anger is good. You must be angry when somebody is mistreating somebody or abusing an animal, and you sit there and say, I love you, I'm not angry. No, you cannot. It's very difficult. But how long? And before you recover from it, you will use anger to achieve something, and then you come back to your natural state of peace. It's when you're unable to return to your state of peace that anger starts to become a poisonous, a toxic emotion. For that matter, anything, even love. What we say love is very often attachment.
Yeah.
So understanding that every emotion is, including disgust, including awe, including surprise, including being scared. Fear is a very powerful emotion. We need fear. But
that's how we survived for so long too. Fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in small doses, because unless you're fearful, for instance, if you're not scared about our health, we won't improve our health.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So what you're saying is we have to embody all these emotions. It's just not letting it completely take over and consume you.
Yes, we are in control, and we employ these emotions to achieve certain desired outcomes. And when that is done, we come back to our natural homeostasis of peace.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I think that is a great place to leave off on this podcast right here. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this have taken a lot out of the knowledge and the wisdom that you have given. Everything is very universal. Everything is something that we personally go through. And it has been such an honor to, talk with you and to converse and go back and forth with these discussions right here. So I really thank you for taking the time and opportunity to speak with me. I know for sure that I've learned a lot, and I feel so much more enlightened right now and lighter.
Thank you. Thank you, Eudora. It is equally a privilege for me to, be in conversation with, like I said in the beginning, with somebody like you, because you have a very open heart and mind. You're curious to learn. You're the younger generation. There's much to learn from people like you. So I consider it my privilege as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nivedita. It was such an honor. Thank you.
Until next time. Bye-bye.